Let's get sweaty.
Hello everyone and welcome to this brand new episode of Shenmue Dojo interviews. I've got a really exciting guest for you on this episode today. She has appeared in a whole host of anime over the years, including Mother of Goddess's Dormitory, My Teen Romantic Comedy, Food Wars, and much more. As well as that, she's also transitioned into the world of video game voiceover as well, with a new release to come. But not only that, she has transitioned over into the Shenmue community as one of our favourite characters from the games and now the anime. My guest on the dojo today is the voice of Shenhua from Shenmue the anime, Natalie Rial. So Natalie, welcome to the dojo. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm doing pretty good today. How about you?
Yeah, all good. It's evening here, nice and warm in my house, and getting to talk about Shenmue. I couldn't be better, shall we say? I'm glad to have you on.
I'm very glad to be here.
So before we dive into the Shenmue stuff, could you sort of give me a sort of career tour, how you got into anime and how you sort of became a voiceover actor in the industry?
Yeah. So the way I got into the industry is a little different than I know quite a few other people have. I was actually fairly lucky, as my sister has been doing anime for quite a long time. Back when I was in high school, she messaged me and said, "Hey, there's a show that I'm working on. They need a few more female actors, and I know you've been doing theater your whole life, so would you like to go ahead and come on?" And so I recorded my first show when I was about 17. And then I didn't record for a couple years, and I really wanted to be in this industry. So I actually sent an email over to the company I recorded with the first time, and I said, "Hey, I'm still around, and I would love to continue in this industry. If you have roles for me, or if you have auditions open, I would love to come around." And it just, I got an email back, and it went from there. And I've been recording quite a bit more since that email, about I would say 5 years ago now.
So I was having a look on your IMDb earlier, and you've got obviously a massive range of credits for a lot of different anime titles within quite a short space of time. If you've only been sort of doing this for the last sort of 5 years, could you list some of the favorite titles that you worked on, or any particular characters that you've had favorites that you've recorded?
Yeah, that's actually a really hard question because I've done so many different shows, and I've had such a different range of characters that, they all kind of have a special place in my heart. Um, so I did a show. One of the first big shows that I did was called "Is It Wrong to Try and Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon?" And it was a very fun show about, being part of a magical family and fighting monsters, and it's just this really fun, action packed anime. And that one, I've always really had a soft place in my heart for that one because it was one of the first big ones that I did. But I have a character in a show called Domestic Girlfriend, Rui Tachibana, and the show's a little taboo, but her character, Rui's character, really develops throughout the show. And you see her become this beautiful, emotional character, coming from someone who is very dry at the beginning of the show. And I think it's beautiful to watch. And I absolutely love that show for that reason. Of course, I really enjoyed being a part of Shenmue. I think it's a really cool story from what I've seen in the recording process. And as I will learn as the show actually comes out alongside everyone watching it. It was a really cool process. And then there's this character that I just did. It's actually a re-record of a show that's on Netflix called Kakuguri. And the character I play, Madari, is just, oh my gosh, she's insane. And it's something completely different than I've ever gotten to do in the studio. And it was so different and so much fun. And I'm hoping that I can continue doing characters like her in the future, but it was just absolutely amazing to do something so vastly different than what I've ever done before. And I definitely went through a lot of tea drinking that show to try and soothe my throat.
So, what's so different about this character to all the other ones that you've played across your career?
So, throughout my career, I've played a lot of characters very similar to Shenhua and my character Rui that I was speaking about earlier, in the sense that they are very close to my own vocal range. They sound very similar to my natural tone. Or I've played
Yeah.
characters that are very high pitched, very excitable, very up in my higher registers, or even higher than that. Um, and then this character Madari, she is very crazy. She's obsessed with gambling to the sense that she takes it too far a lot of the times,
Hmm.
and she her her vocal range changes quite frequently to show the insanity inside of her. It's a little bit deeper in my register. It's a lot of vocal fry thrown in there. It's a lot of screaming, and it was very unique for me to get to do something like that, since it's not something I've ever really gotten to explore too much before.
And is that something you'd want to explore more of in the future?
Oh, very much so. I've been a sucker for horror my entire life. I grew up watching the Friday the 13th movies way earlier than I should have. And so I've always really enjoyed the craziness and the weird characters. And I always, when I was in theater growing up, I always would tell people that my dream role would be Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd, because she's so different. So I hope that I get to progress in my career and continue doing these interesting and different crazy characters.
That sounds really cool. You get on with my wife, I reckon. She's a massive horror buff. She loves like Friday the 13th, It, and some of the old classics
Yeah,
as well. She's a big buff for horror. Like, she constantly watches the stuff on
it's so much
Netflix.
fun. I feel like it makes you feel more alive, getting that little thrill and that scare in you every now and then.
It does, and I find the music's what gets me in horrors.
Yes. Oh, yes.
It it sends a chill, and music will be in my head for days
Mm-hmm.
afterwards, and I'm still like, oh, hairs on my neck, and all of that. But anyway, Shenmue, obviously the anime is out currently, but we'll talk a bit more about sort of the nitty gritty around it in a minute. Had you actually heard of Shenmue before being cast as Shenhua?
I actually hadn't. So I grew up not really playing a lot of video games. My mom didn't buy me any gaming systems. It wasn't until I was in, I want to say, middle school, that my dad decided to buy me a Wii for
Oh
New
yeah.
Year's so that he wouldn't have to spend money on fireworks.
Okay.
and and since then I've kind of become this huge video game nerd, and I have a PS4 and a PS3 and a PS2 and a Wii and a Nintendo Switch, and I've been trying to gobble up all these games that I didn't get to play growing up. So all the Batman games I've been playing, Crash
Yeah.
Bandicoot, um, Horizon Zero Dawn is like my favorite thing in the whole world right now. Borderlands, all those really crazy games that I never got to play. So I had never really heard of Shenmue until I got the audition for the show. And then I started doing, my research on it and talking to my brother, who is actually about 10 years older than me. And he
Yeah.
was playing video games in the time that Shenmue came out. And when I first was able to announce the role, he messaged me and told me, "Oh my gosh, I played that game when I was growing up. I loved it so much. I can't believe you're in the show." And so I got to talk to him a little bit about the games and learn a little bit about them through him.
Really cool. That's
Hmm.
really cool that there's that link with your brother there. I'm glad he's a fan. Actually, are you going to try and play the games at any point, or with all the other games you've got to catch up on, will it be in the backlog?
I definitely want to play it. I've been trying to actually. I would like to play it on its original console. I'd like to try and find a Dreamcast to play it on. just because I played a lot of games on the GameCube. Once I started getting back into gaming, I borrowed a GameCube from one of my friends and started playing a bunch of games that originally came out on the GameCube, because I just think it's such a cool way to kind of, get that media, is to go back and see it the way that it originally was supposed to be seen and originally supposed to be played. So I'm trying to find a way to do that and get my hands on that kind of stuff. And as soon as I do, I'm definitely going to be playing it, because everyone's been talking about Forklifts and I need to find out what that's about, because I have no idea.
I won't spoil it for you then. I'll leave it there, but it's a Shenmue joke, and when you play the
Hmm.
game, you will get that joke, and there's other jokes in the game as well.
Sailors
Yeah,
is another one I've heard a lot.
yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Sailors is the other one that's quite popular, especially with the first game. And the second game's a bit faster paced than the first game. But I'd be very interested when you played it to hear what you thought of it. It's 20 odd years
Yes.
now that came out,
Yes.
and on original hardware as well. I think you'll be in for a
Yes.
treat. But I am also incredibly biased, so.
That's what everyone's been telling me who's actually played it, is that it's one of those games that, like, nowadays, of course, the graphics aren't going to match up to what we're used to nowadays. Like, as I said, with Horizon being my favorite game, it's a beautiful, stunning game, and I know
Yes, it
that
is.
Shenmue is a little more pixelated and all that, so it's going to be a little bit of a shock going to that. But what I've heard is that it's one of those games that just, like, once you play it, it just grabs a hold of you, and it becomes one of your favorites instantly.
Yeah, that's exactly how I describe it. If you get on with it and you enjoy it, I think
Hmm.
you're hooked for life. Quite frankly,
I'm really looking forward to it.
brilliant. I'd be very interested to hear what you think of it when you get round to playing it. So
Yeah,
good luck, and
thank you.
when you get the forklift joke, you will laugh out loud to yourself. Believe me. Okay, so we've sort of touched on this a little bit already. You talked about the audition process
Mhm.
for Shenhua. How did that sort of come about? You getting to audition for Shenhua, and then obviously getting the part itself.
So I got an email asking me to come in and audition for Shenmue, and didn't really know much about it. I was like, sure, I'd love to audition, and I went to the studio. They gave me a sheet of paper that had a couple different characters on it, a couple different of the girls in the show.
Yeah,
And I went through, and it had a little description of each character, and showed their picture. And I went through and I read what each character was like, kind of their personalities, just to get a feel of the characters. And I said, these are the characters that I'd like to audition for, which, to be honest, was all of them, because they all sounded really interesting. And then I went into the booth, and each one, they had the screen in front of me with
hmm,
the script on one side, and at this time, the show wasn't even fully animated yet.
yeah,
So I was the sketched out parts of the show, and I went in and auditioned a few lines for each character, and then that was about it for a few months. I didn't hear anything back for a while, and in this industry, if you don't hear anything, you're like, "Oh, okay, well, I didn't get it. Let's move on."
yeah, yeah,
Well, a few months later, I get a call back for Shenhua, and I went in and recorded the poem,
yeah,
and the way that it was written at that time. It went through quite a few changes.
yeah,
Um, so I read that a couple times, and it was sent off to the producers, and didn't hear back for another few months. And then I would say about 6 months after my original audition, I got a call letting me know that I got Shenhua. And I didn't know much about the show or the game, as I had said, but she was on all the posters.
yeah. True, true.
So um, I didn't know what that meant, and sense of how much I was going to be recording, but I knew that there was going to be something pivotal about her, and I'd been interested in her the most out of any of the characters, because she's so mysterious.
Yeah,
Um, that as soon as I was told that that was the character that I got, as soon as I got off the phone, I just started crying.
Oh wow.
I was because she was the one that I really, really wanted. And a lot of the times in this industry, that's not really how it works. You want a character, but you might not fit that character very well in the eyes of the producer or the director.
Yeah.
And to get the character that I thought was just so interesting, just from reading that little paragraph about her, I was just blown away and ecstatic. And I probably cried for about 20 minutes before I regained myself and was able to accept it and be excited and not a blubbering mess in the middle of my office at work.
Oh, that's really cool. And do you remember what the character brief was for her in that little paragraph at all?
I don't remember the exact words, but it was along the lines of she was, a young woman um, that was mysterious and almost ethereal, very in tune with nature,
Yeah.
and the animals around her. Um, Very much an old soul kind of vibe to her. And the mysterious and the ethereal were really what kind of caught me. And I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
that just sounds so fun and interesting. And I would love to be a part of that. And her character design is just, she's so freaking cute. She's so cute. And I was very enamored with her when I first got that audition sheet. And she was the original one that I was like, yes, that character. I want to play her.
Thank you. And I think that summary does sum her up very well. She is mysterious. We don't know a
Yes.
whole lot about her, even really in what is now three games. We don't know
Mhm.
too much about her lineage, and everything else in between. So to hear that they've nailed that description of her as a fan pleases me,
Yeah.
of a long time, and then to hear that appeal to you, and obviously appeal to your passion around that character.
Mhm.
I really enjoy hearing about that, and I think it comes across actually in the first teaser trailer they released. I think around October, the Comic Con.
Yes. The first version of the poem that I recorded.
Was that the third version of the
The
poem?
first. It was the
The
first
first.
version. That was actually, that teaser that they released. It was at a convention that they released it. That was actually my audition that
That was
they
your
released it
audition.
at. It was.
Oh wow! So that
That was
was
Mhm.
old.
That was my audition. That wasn't, a finalized product, and I actually didn't even know they were going to be releasing it. I got a call from my director saying, "Hey, I just wanna let you know that they just dropped a teaser, for Shenmue, and it's just you talking, and they released it at a convention. So, just a heads up, you can't talk about it yet, so if anyone asks you, deny it."
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I remember I was watching that live on stream, and we were watching the panel that it came out at, and
Mhm.
I was like, "Is that's Shenhua? That's slightly different to the games, but it's very similar."
Mhm.
Getting confused, and then we were it bugged us for months as to who it was. We couldn't work it out. Oh wow, that's your first audition, and they throw out a teaser trailer with the
Yep.
prophecy, which is
Yep.
quite a big part of Shenmue.
Exactly. I was shocked at that point, to say the least. I was like, we haven't even at that point, we were still recording the show, and we actually hadn't finalized what the prophecy was going to sound like yet. Going between my director and the producers, they were volleying back and forth for a while, trying to figure out the exact phrasing, for the prophecy for the show.
Yeah,
And I mean, I'm sure you could tell it's not the same as what's in the teaser. It's two different prophecies, same for the most part, but the phrasing is a little bit different in
yeah.
them. So we hadn't even recorded it for the show yet. We were still rewriting it at that point. And to see that they had released it, I was like, "Oh, okay. I mean, interesting. It's really cool, but I wasn't expecting that yet."
No, but it was. I can tell you from the community, it was incredibly well received. I mean, we dissected it line by line. Go, hang on, that's different from the games. But then the games, I think, have about three or four different variations of the prophecy. So the
Yes.
fact it's been rewritten isn't uncommon. But I remember hearing that and going, yeah, that voice fits her
Well, I
perfectly.
appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. As coming from someone who played the games and loved them, that is all I could want, is to give this character and do this character justice to the fans. I just I want to be what you guys want her to be.
Well, we're definitely off to an exceptionally good start, I think,
Thank you.
and then hearing her in the first episode, which
Mhm,
again with the prophecy in the
mhm.
cave, which is iconic for another reason. In that was the last scene of Shenmue 2, and we had
Yes.
a cliffhanger for 20 years. So hearing that prophecy in the cave as the opener to the anime, that sent chills down my spine, and it
That's
was
good to hear.
beautifully done. I must say.
Thank you very much.
So going into sort of the character of Shenhua, we touched on this a little bit in terms of her character traits. You like
Mhm,
the mysteriousness around her, the fact that she's at one with nature. Were
mhm.
there any other particular traits that jumped out about her that you liked, and also were there any that you weren't too sure about?
I really love the way she is with animals.
Hmm.
Like in the beginning of the first episode, you see her with her sheep,
Yeah,
talking about the sun setting in the horizon and
yeah,
or sun rising. And I just think it's very cute. I like that about her very much. You can tell she really cares about animals, and cares about her village
mm,
as well. It's a little hint. You see that a little bit more as well. Um, and I really love that aspect about her. She seems to be a very genuine and caring human, which I think is very very sweet. I enjoy that aspect of her. From what I've seen and recorded with her, I don't really know if there's anything that I would say I dislike about her.
yeah.
I think overall she's a very kind-hearted person and very genuine, and I think that it would be hard to find something to dislike about her as a character.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And she is very much very kind, very genuine.
Mhm,
If sometimes a little maybe naive, considering she's grown up in a village that
mhm.
is cut off from everything and anywhere else in China. But she is at one with nature, and she
Yeah.
does care about her village and her her father and the people around her. I think that speaks volumes actually
Mhm.
of her character and the way she
Yes.
is. So going into the technicalities around recording,
Yeah.
how were your lines done? Were you recording these on your own? Did you record any with any other voice actors? How was it all put together?
So, in the studio setting, it's typically just one person in the booth at a time.
Yeah.
However, what is really cool is depending on when you go in to record as an actor, if someone's gone in to record before you,
Hmm.
their lines are already synced to the show. So if you're recording with someone or recording after someone that you are in a scene with, you can hear their voice as you're recording. So it's very easy to interact with them in a very conversational manner rather than trying to create the conversation by yourself in a booth all alone. Um, so there are a couple scenes in the show where I went in after a few of the other actors and I got to interact with them, which was very cool. Now, getting to interact with the main character, Rao, I don't. I didn't get to go in after him. He recorded last because he is a main character, and typically the main character is the last actor to record.
Okay.
So any of my interactions with Austin, it was always me first.
Yeah.
So um, luckily, Shenhua as a character is a little more mild,
Hmm.
a little more wise sounding, I would say, in her speech patterns. And it's a little easier to go that route rather than being a very over emotional character interacting with no one. So thankfully, it was a little bit easier with her than it has been for some other characters. But for the most part, it was just me all by my lonesome and my director in the other room,
Yeah.
and the producer on like a Zoom call,
Yeah.
and that was about it, and they were just saying, "Yep, that sounded good," or "No, we gotta redo that one a few times, let's try it a different way," and that was pretty much how we went along for the entire time in the studio.
And how long do you think you were in the studio for, roughly?
Now, I will say this this time does not reflect line count. I will say that for sure, because
Okay.
we did go back and re-record things quite a few times just
Yeah.
to get them absolutely perfect. But I would say I probably spent about 5 hours in the studio for this show, which is quite a long time. For only a 13 episode show, is not being a lead. 5 hours is typically quite a long time. Um, but we did, the prophecy, for example. I think we spent 2 hours alone on that,
Wow.
rewriting and re-recording and doing that over and over and over again until we got it to be just perfect and the way that we wanted it to sound and flow and just be the right verbiage for the way they wanted the animation to feel.
Brilliant. And were they rewriting it literally while you were recording it, or were they coming back to you and said we need to do it again? Or was it happening literally on the fly?
It was on the fly. It was a lot of, well, this we don't like the way this word sounds with this word, so let's change this word up right here and see how that flows. And then we would record it, and then they'd go, well, now I don't like this other part. So then we would rewrite that one part and go back in and record. And they would ask me, do you want to just go ahead and do this one line, or do you want to record the entire thing? And I was like, well, just for sake of making sure it flows and sounds right, let's just record the whole prophecy from the beginning. And I would just go through and I would say the whole thing that by by the time I was done recording the show, I could say that prophecy without even looking at a script. I had said it so many times that it was just ingrained in my memory.
Brilliant. That's really cool to hear, and sort of it feeds into my next question. Actually, were there any sort of particular moments that stand out from your time recording as Shenhua?
Oh gosh. The whole thing was really fun because it was recorded in one studio but being produced by a separate studio.
Yeah.
Um, it was a very unique experience. When I typically go in to record an anime, it's with the company that is producing it.
Okay.
And I just go in and I record and I'm done.
Hmm.
And I'm just with one person, my director. Well, with this one, we were with the my director and the producer. So I was getting feedback from two people at once, which was really cool, because it wasn't just one person that I've worked with a couple times. It was someone who I had never spoken with in my entire life from an entirely different country, giving me feedback on my acting that I had never heard before, and it was very very cool to be a part of. So I don't it's kinda hard to pick just one favorite part because it was
Yeah.
all just so unique and so different and interesting and just a really fun thing to be a part of. And I enjoyed all of that, but if you're talking, like, lines in general, I mean, the prophecy is beautiful, and recording it, I felt like Katara from the beginning of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Brilliant.
And that was super fun to me. When I finished recording it the first time for the audition, I left and I was like, man, I feel like Katara. I'm announcing this big, adventure coming along and this prophecy and just like I would finish it and I laughed and I looked at my director after we finished recording and I said, and I believe that he can save the world like Katara does at the end of Avatar.
Yeah.
And I laughed at myself really hard for that one because it felt so similar.
Brilliant. And as I said before, the prophecy sounds excellent, and
Thank you.
it does resonate really with the community. And that sort of comes in again to my next sort of question. Obviously, you've recorded all your lines.
Mhm.
They announced the release date, which we've been, as Shenmue fans, we've been clamoring for the release date ever since they announced the thing in September
Mhm.
2020. So we've been waiting a while. What were you thinking pre-release in terms of your hopes for it and how it would be received?
I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. I knew that this game was so loved by the community that played it. And with knowing who Shenhua was as a character, I knew that she was a very liked character as well.
Yeah.
And I was so scared that it was going to air and people were going to be like, that's not what she should sound like. I don't like it. I don't like her. This is horrible. This is terrible. I was shaking when the day that show came out. When Shinmu aired on Saturday. I was just terrified. And to see the way that people have been responding to it, um, it it's made me so very happy, and I feel like as of now, I feel like I've done her justice for the fans, and that is all I could ever hope for with this show is the fans loving her and loving the way that I've portrayed her as much as, they did when they played the games for the first time.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I've obviously only seen one episode, but I think that resonates across the whole of the anime. Is I think it's been put together with a lot of care and
Mhm.
attention, and everybody who has been in it, I think, has taken that time to really get to know the characters, get a feel for them, and actually want to make them their own. And I think it definitely comes across. And well, the reception speaks for itself. Quite frankly, I
Oh
think.
yeah, I mean, it was trending on Twitter, and that alone, like, I squealed. I saw that it was trending on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I totally freaked out for a second when I saw that it was trending, because I honestly, I think that might have been the first time anything that I've ever done has trended on Twitter. And as an actor, that's a big deal. And, as someone who, wants the show to do well, that was even cooler to see that people, not just fans, but people who have never heard of it before, watching the show
Yeah.
and liking it, was very exciting to see.
Was that in your mind then, just as a sort of side question? Obviously, the community are one element of it, and as you know, Shenmue, the community and everything around it, we're quite a passionate bunch. Been
Yes.
around a long time. So there's us that are sat there waiting with thinking, right, how's this going to go in terms of following the games, etc., which it does
Mhm.
very very well at the moment, and then the other sort of wider anime community, so you've got sort of almost a double whammy of expectation there. How was that?
It's definitely it was kind of a lot to think about at the time, because I was thinking about both aspects of it. I was, wanting to be true to, the character so that fans of Shinmu would enjoy it. But I also was so nervous with, the anime community as a whole,
Yeah,
the ones who haven't played Shenmue, how they would, accept it. And people who maybe have watched some of my shows and, wanted to, see something that was similar to something else I played. And she's not really a lot like a ton of my other characters. Um, she's not this, hyper ecstatic character. She's very, very different. Um, so I was hoping that, people and all would enjoy the show. And so far they have, and I hope they continue to do so, because I know for a fact that I put in a lot of care into this character. And, Austin always puts a lot of care into all the characters that he is in as well. And I think that he's doing a fantastic job. I know a lot of the actors that are in this show, and I think that they all really did put a lot of care into it. And I hope that, everyone can see that and that it shows through their work. And so far I think it is, and that just makes me very happy as an actor.
and it makes me very happy as a Shenmue fan, and I think it shows publicly when all you guys are out supporting it, giving it
Mhm.
your all. I think again it just feeds into that care for your characters and for Shenmue
Mhm.
as an anime. I think it definitely shows in what we've seen so far. The quality of the anime is
Yeah.
absolutely outstanding. I couldn't have asked for anything better,
The
personally.
the animation of it is absolutely stunning as well. It's they did a fantastic job animating Shenmue and just making it this gorgeous visual thing to look at. And it just it blew my mind when I first watched the show on Saturday along with everyone else when I watched it. Coming from seeing it in, the sketched version
Yeah.
during the audition to seeing what it became, it was just so unbelievably cool.
I can't describe how good it is. I watched it. Well, we reacted to it live on
Mhm.
stream. Because it was around 5 a.m. aired in the UK,
Mhm.
so I had to go into hiding until about 8 o'clock that evening. Even my wife watched it before me. And I remember shouting down to her, asking her if it was any good, and she said, "You're gonna like it." And I'm like, okay, this is good. And she's a real big anime fan. And I sat on stream with the co-owner of this place,
Yeah.
and we watched it. Obviously, no footage shown because we'll get shut down for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was absolutely gobsmacked. I had chills. It was that good.
I can't tell you how much that means to me, and I know would mean to all the other actors involved, but we all really appreciate hearing something like that, because we did put a lot of care into this show.
And it shows. So I'd like to
Thank you.
personally thank you for that, and I know the community
Thank you.
would echo that comment from me as well. I think it absolutely shows in abundance. But moving away from that a little bit, without giving any spoilers, because I know there's 12 more episodes to come as we're recording this. What can we expect from Shenhua in the anime?
You get a little bit more of her background,
Yeah.
of who she is as a character, and how she interacts with other people as well as animals, which I know I keep touting, but I think it's so cute. Her little sheep is the cutest thing in the world. um, and I will say you do see more of her, and I don't want to say too terribly much,
No, that's fair.
because I don't know how different it is from the games, because I have yet to play them. I don't know exactly where it differs and where it's the same. So I don't want to say too terribly much, but I will say you do definitely get to see more of her before the show is over.
And that's really exciting, because we were obviously talking beforehand, and she's very elusive in the games. But I will leave that question there because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. But I'm looking forward to seeing how much more we get of her, because her character is one of the most interesting in the series by far, because we know so little about her at this point.
And that's what drew me to her as well. Like, even I will say, even now, I don't know everything about her. So I'm still, I still want to know more about her as a character, and I don't know how much more I will get to learn. Keeping my fingers crossed that at some point we get to continue this show, and we get to continue learning more about her. But, I'll learn alongside with you guys, to be honest.
Yeah, that's great. And you just answered my next question. Actually, would you want to come back and do season 2 if they did do it?
I would love to. If they greenlit season 2 for this show, I would be there in a heartbeat, because it is such a unique story and so different and fun, and I love Shenhua as a character so much, and I would love to revisit her and see what more she has to offer, and see more about her and learn more about her, and get to go on this giant prophecy that they're talking about and see where that leads. I would love to see Shenmue continue on past what we have as of now.
Brilliant. Well, when you play the games, I think you're in for a treat anyway, and
I'm excited.
I cannot wait to see the rest of this come out, and all 13 episodes. I'm really looking forward to seeing where it does things close to the games, but also where it does things a little bit differently and changes things up. I think it should be that way because it's a new medium, it's a new interpretation of a fantastic story.
Yes.
Moving away then from Shenmue, because I could talk about it all day. And believe me, I could. I wanted to sort of talk about, have you got any other sort of projects that have just come out that you can talk about, that you've worked on or are working on?
Well, the most recent one to this was actually the second season of Kakaguri, which was that character that I spoke about that's so vastly different from my other ones. So that show, the second season on Blu-ray, which is the only way that you would be able to hear my version of it, that just dropped. And so I'm still very much on a high from that character, as well as Shenhua, because I recorded them just about at the same time.
Okay.
And then I do have something new coming out that I can't quite talk about yet. But it is my first video game that I've gotten to be a part of. And so I do get to say that much, but I definitely can't say what game, what character, anything like that yet. But
Ooh, okay.
very, very excited for that. It's something different and very similar in the sense to doing something totally different than anything I've ever done. It's similar in sense to the way that Shenmue was recorded, where it's not just me and my director, it was, the producer of the game as well for that one. And so it was a very different thing to record, and getting to sit in there and do, you know, when your character is moving and stuff in the game, they make, video game sounds. They like have the attacking sounds
Yeah.
and different versions of the attacking sound and spells that they say, and things like that, and getting to record all that kind of stuff in different ways so it sounds similar but different as it does in a video game. That was really fun.
And would you want to do more video games if the opportunity arose?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the Borderlands series continues and I can audition for those at some point.
I'd be surprised if Borderlands didn't. Massive, huge series.
Oh yes, I'm hoping they keep going, and I'm hoping that one day, those being one of my favorite games of all time, I'm hoping one day I can say I'm a talking gun in Borderlands or something silly like that.
Oh, I love Borderlands. So
It's
tongue in
so
cheek
fun.
as well. Good
It's
fun.
it's such a fun game.
Love it. Right, my last question, to sort of bring us to a close, is: do you have a message for the Shenmue community now that the anime is out there?
I honestly, I just want to say thank you all so much for caring about Shenmue as much as you do, and for, wanting the best from this show. And I really hope that, we can continue to give that to you guys. And everything that I've seen so far, I want to say thank you for accepting me as your Shenhua. I was very nervous about that, and seeing how she's been accepted and how the show itself has been accepted, it makes my heart very happy, and I appreciate it so very much. And I hope that you all love her, at least my version of her, as much as I did.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, Natalie, all that remains for me to say is thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk to me about the Shenmue anime and Shenhua. As I said a few times, the community are absolutely thrilled with your version of Shenhua. The anime is fantastic. If people haven't watched it yet, you're in hiding or whatever. You want to binge watch it. Don't binge watch it. Watch it now because you're torturing yourself because it's that damn good. It really is. So, Natalie, thank you very much for coming on today, and for everybody listening to this, thank you as always for taking the time to listen to the interview series on our podcast. You can catch us over on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all the usual social media channels, and I will be back with another interview down the line very shortly. Thank you, everyone, and take care.
Oh, look at the time.